Good morning, everybody, and thank you for taking the time today to listen to what I've got to say about the media and sustainable tourism. I am the managing partner and global travel practice leader of Flynn Partners. We are a global PR and marketing communications agency based out of New York. I lead the travel practice and I'm based in London. So I'm really honoured to be able to stand before you today at the Extreme Hangout COP29 in Baku, where the world's most passionate minds have gathered to discuss the pressing issues we face in sustainable development. In this space of innovation and collaboration, we're here to explore how tourism, a vital economic force, can become a more powerful engine for positive change, and how the media can guide this transformation. I was at the Ministers' Summit earlier this morning and was hearing how much in so many countries the contribution to GDP is from a tourism perspective. We represent over 200 tourism and hospitality brands at Flynn Partners, and we recognise that tourism must be a central part of any conversation on sustainability. At its best, tourism creates opportunities for local economies, supports biodiversity conservation, and fosters a deeper understanding of the cultural and natural heritage of the regions that we all love to visit. But at its worst, tourism can exploit vulnerable ecosystems, erode cultural identities, and contribute to the very destruction of the destinations that we all cherish. We only have to look at the headlines of last summer of some of the demonstration for overtourism in parts of Spain and the wildfires in Greece. Climate change is affecting tourism. Today, I want to speak about how we in the communications and media industry, with our storytelling power, which is power, have an immense responsibility and opportunity to ensure that tourism helps and not harms the natural world. I'm just going to talk for a couple of minutes about the media's role in the sustainable tourism revolution. Our industry really does sit at the intersection of both information and inspiration. Media shapes how travellers see the world and how they engage with it. Whether these are traditional outlets, digital platforms, or social media, the stories that we all tell influence the decisions of millions. This is especially crucial as we face a global climate crisis where responsible tourism must be the norm, not the exception. I was moderating a panel last year on greenwashing, and I had the chief sustainability writer for the Sunday Times on my panel. And we were debating actually how there's an intention and action gap with travellers in terms of they kind of do want to travel more sustainably, but the reality is when they come to actually booking it, if it's more expensive or it's not obvious where that experience is, they may not actually make that choice. And his view was that people want cake, not lentils, and that we as a travel industry need to put the lentils in the cake so that a sustainable tourism experience is what every traveller gets to experience as a natural, and they're not sort of guilt-tripped into it. I thought it was worth mentioning that. And I think the other thing to think about is with digital media, particularly English-speaking digital media, being at the forefront of a lot of our information sources, we need to remember that quite often we are talking to a global audience. So, we in the UK have the Mail Online, which is a British publication, but that is read all over the world and is very influential from a digital audience. So I think that's really, really important. And perhaps the other thing I would mention, when I've been in the business 40 years. 10 years ago, there were a few real specialist journalists that were just writing about sustainable tourism. And now there isn't really any journalist anywhere that isn't writing about it. But the challenge for us as communicators is actually how much do they really know about it? Do they go that level deeper that these travel specialists do? So at COP29, we're tasked with leading the charge for a more sustainable future. Here in this space, we're reminded of the interconnectedness of tourism and nature. These are two forces that really must work in harmony. And as media professionals, it's our duty to highlight this connection ensuring we amplify the voices and initiatives that prioritise ecological balance and community well-being. Only yesterday, I was on this stage moderating a panel, and the question was, what's going to be our next plastic straw movement? And what we were really talking about was the heightened public awareness of the turtle that had the straw in its nostril that came to the global attention in 2015. And it was the horror of the public when they realized what plastic was doing to the oceans and to our wildlife, that the pressure was put on us as in the tourism industry, airlines, destinations, hotels, to ban the plastic straw, which actually was successful to a degree. I mean, I know we're not there totally yet, but that was public outcry. We debated, is that what we need? What could the next movement be? Is it going to be climate justice when we see people being imprisoned for the kind of things that, you know, COP is talking about taking to a legal perspective? Is it going to be another movie like a Free Willy? Or actually, one of the views of the panel was it shouldn't be one big thing. We should all be doing something every day. And the example I gave yesterday was, for those of you that live in the UK, we had a really big post office scandal that was being written about for years, where postmasters were being fined and they were out of pocket. And it was only when a TV series that brought this to everybody's attention around the same time as it was going to court, that the public outcry caused the government to actually compensate all these postmasters. So the consumer and how the media write about what's going on is incredibly powerful. So I think the big thing, it's all about storytelling. And our stories must reflect the reality that tourism can be regenerative. There's some incredible examples around the world where tourism is helping to restore ecosystems, empowering local communities, and educating visitors about conservation. From community-led ecotourism projects in Africa that protect wildlife to innovative sustainability initiatives in island nations, these stories really do need to be at the forefront of the coverage. And I remember we were representing Dominica many years ago when 90% of the island was destroyed by a hurricane. And one of the amazing initiatives that helped them rebuild was a whole heap of voluntourism, which was written about by the media, because it was a story that really appealed to the hearts of people out there who are consumers. We have amazing community initiatives. Another great example is the San Antonio Women's Initiative, which is in Belize, and that is all about women showing holidaymakers how to cook, all their crafts, and there's examples of these everywhere in the world, and we need the media to write about these. Otherwise, the consumer won't actually think, these are the kind of things I need to be actually doing when I'm on holiday. So as we sit here in Baku, at the junction of land and sea, I think it's fitting to think about how we can bridge the worlds of nature and humanity. You know, and there are so many examples of stories we need to tell more often about how traveling into a community actually educate their children. And educating children, having shelter, having food is a basic human right, and told the right way and people holidaying the right way, you're actually helping to change the world. On the other hand, we must acknowledge the damage tourism can cause when left unchecked. Overtourism is real, and it impacts on fragile ecosystems and local cultures and can be devastating. Whether it's overcrowded cities or threatened coral reefs, the consequences are dire, and it's our responsibility to inform travellers of the impact their actions actually have. Another great example that comes to mind recently is that the World Travel and Tourism Council have been working with the private sector in Italy to actually encourage hoteliers to stay open longer, because many hotels, this was in particular in the Lake Como area, will close because there's a particular season. So if the hotels stay open longer, if the people have jobs for longer, and if tourists start to come in the low or shoulder season, then actually it's good for everybody, and people won't experience the overcrowding. And in fact, WTTC have coined the term community conscious tourism, because actually if you look at the word low or shoulder. Low season could make a consumer think that actually that's probably not a good time to go. And it's shoulder is just a real sort of jargon term, and we've got plenty of them in travel. Whereas community conscious tourism, if we can get that phrase going, which shows that this is, if you travel to somewhere in a different season, you're actually contributing to the community. So our role here at Extreme Hangout is to push for a shift in consciousness. And today, as you probably all know, is the first day that tourism has officially been part of COP. And it's not enough to encourage travel for the sake of exploration. We must promote travel that is mindful of its footprint. And media can help shape this new narrative by exposing the dangers of overtourism where it's relevant, but also showcasing the steps that destinations are taking to mitigate their impact. And there are lots of destinations doing really good things, but unfortunately, often with the media, it's the headlines of the people demonstrating that get the cut through, and you don't hear the story of the good things that are really being done to try and change that story. So, you know, in heading towards closure, I want to just talk about how do we move forward and maybe what's the call to action here at COP. So I think it's elevating responsible travel, and that the media needs to be at the forefront of highlighting the destinations that really do embrace sustainable practices. Let's champion tourism that respect local communities, invest in conservation and preserved biodiversity. You know, in a way, the world doesn't need more marketing for marketing's sake of some of the old tourist hotspots. They're going to get their tourists anyway. Let's pull out those stories about those local communities and have media campaigns that encourage travellers to discover new, sustainable ways to experience the planet. At Flynn Partners, we call it vacation migration, which is really people choosing to go to the secondary cities, other parts of the country. A term that was coined a couple of years ago now is called coolcationing, where people are afraid of the heat that they're going to experience in places like the Mediterranean in the summer. So they're going to places like the Nordics, you know, so there really is beginning to become a trend that is led by headlines from the media. And I think the really important thing we need to do is make sure we've got that in balance and we are telling those stories. And influence policy and business. At COP, it's very much about policy. And as media professionals, we've got a really unique platform to influence both policymakers and the private sector and the businesses. We need to advocate for tourism models that go beyond profit, promoting policies that protect natural environments and support these local communities I've talked about. I mean, a good example today is the World Sustainable Hospitality Alliance, literally about an hour ago, have announced the first global framework for measuring hospitality. Because at the end of the day, you can't manage what you can't measure. And so this is a free tech platform for any hotelier to actually buy into in terms of the mindset, when I say buy into it, and start measuring their energy, their waste, their water in a way that is a global framework. So that should be hitting the headlines very soon. And then inspiring the next generation. One of the key themes of this event is youth empowerment. And it's a reminder that the next generation is hungry for change. Jess, our lovely Jess here at Extreme Hangout, literally an hour ago, was live on Kay Burley's Sky programme this morning. And she was being asked, what do you want as the youth? And she talked about youth washing. What the youth want, and they are the next generation, is they want to not just be listened to, they actually want to be part of the decisions that are being made. So, I mean, that's a new terminology. I heard this week, youth washing. I had a fantastic 21-year-old on my panel yesterday, on the sort of plastic straw panel, and he was talking about exactly that same thing. He is an ambassador for the Bahamas, and he really cares about it. But he said, we want to be able to go on holiday as this generation and not feel guilty and want to enjoy it. And it's up to us to tell those stories and help the young people holiday in the right way. So here it's really more than just ideas. It's about actionable change. The future of tourism really depends on the stories that we tell, the images we share, and the narratives that we create. Every article, every post, every campaign has the potential to shape the future of travel and ensure that tourism not only survives, but thrives as a force for good. As we move forward from all of the conversations at COP here these last 2 weeks, let us remember the health of our planet is intertwined with the way we travel. It's up to us as media leaders to ensure that tourism becomes a driving force for environmental stewardship and sustainable development. We must use our platforms to promote responsible tourism that protects nature, empowers local communities, and ensures a future where both people and planet thrive, should I say. In closing, I ask us all here at Extreme Hangout to embrace our roles as guardians of the truth, to be transparent, as champions for nature, and as storytellers for a sustainable future. Let's ensure that tourism helps, not harms, the natural world, and the stories we tell today will inspire the world tomorrow. Thank you.